We are back to the tedious epithet, fascism, being applied to Trumpsters and patriots and Republicans. Joe Biden said something to the effect of, I don't mind the old-style conservative Republicans, but these MAGA Republicans are fascists. Now, I have done a lot of work on this topic. By the way, if you haven't, or you don't have it or haven't read it, this is the book to get, The Big Lie. It's not just about fascism, it's also about Nazism. It's called Exposing the Nazi Roots of the American Left. It'll blow your mind because it goes into this topic in the kind of detail that you rarely see. It takes on all the reasons why the left tries to pin the fascist tail on the Republican elephant. It goes on to show how preposterous they are. Things like, well, the Republicans are the party of nationalism. The assumption, of course, being that nationalism is somehow a phenomenon solely of the right, whereas nationalism has come from the left as often as it has come from the right. And famous nationalists like Gandhi or Mandela, Fidel Castro, Stalin, think of all these nationalists who were clearly, well, at least for the most part, on the left. So it's, I also did, by the way, a Prager University video that you should check out, and it's on the Philosopher of Fascism. It's kind of interesting, we all know the philosopher of Marxism, right? That's Marx. But who was the philosopher of fascism? Or is it the case that fascism never had a philosopher? Not at all. Fascism had a number of prominent intellectuals associated with the movement, and the sort of philosopher par excellence of fascism was a guy named Giovanni Gentile. He was the eminence grise, the mentor, the inspiration for Mussolini. And like Mussolini, Gentile came out of the Marxist movement. Mussolini, by the way, was the editor of a Marxist journal. These are socialists, and fascism came out of this socialist tradition. By the way, I made this point before in the podcast, but and I have a lot of detail to support it, all of it in this book, The Big Lie. Fascism emerged in Italy, but then there were fascist movements in a number of countries, in Germany, in France, also in England. Oswald Mosley was a prominent fascist in England, and by the way, this guy was on the left wing of the Labour Party. So, to a man, all the leading founders of fascism in all the major European countries, Belgium, France, England, Italy, Germany, were men of the left. And typically of the far left. Some of them broke with the left because they thought that the left in their countries wasn't left-wing enough. And the core meaning of fascism is captured in something that the most famous fascists, by the way, the most famous fascist is not Hitler, it's Mussolini. Hitler was obviously, in some ways, you could say, the founder of Nazism, which is a kind of variant of fascism. It's fascism plus anti-Semitism. The original fascism didn't really have anti-Semitism, but here's Mussolini defining fascism. Quote, everything in the state, nothing outside the state, nothing against the state. So the state, centralized state power, you have private entities, but they are subordinate to the centralized state power. So at its core, fascism is about centralized state power, and therefore simply ask yourself the simple question, does this doctrine, everything in the state, nothing outside the state, nothing against the state, sound more like the MAGA Republicans or the Biden Democrats? Yes, exactly.